Hari Om. Sukumaji, please begin.
Om Sakana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunatu Sahaviryam Karavavagai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavagai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakodi Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru me Deva Sarvakarishu Sarvata. Om Samasta Jana Kalyani Niradam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Om Shri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Om Radhasmarami Kriti Samspuradatmatattvam Sachit Sukham Paramaham Sagadinturiyam Yasupna Jagara Sushuptama Vaidi Nityam Tadbrahma Nishkalamaham Najabhuda Sankaha Pradarbhajami Manasa Vajasamagam Vacho Vibhanti Nikilaya Danugrahena Yennedi Nedi Vachanir Nigamava Ucho Tandeva Deva Majamachudamaguragyam Pradharnamami Tamasa Paramarkavarnam Purnam Sanadana Padam Purushottamakyam Yasminnidam Jagadasheshamasheshamuto Rijvam Bhujangamaiva Pratibhasidam Vai. Pranasedam Vache Sarvam Sritiveya Pratishtitam Mateva Putran Rakshasva Srija Prajnan Chaviteyana Iti. ഗുരുപാദുക സ്തോത്രം. അനന്ത സംസാര സമുദ്രതാര നൗകായിതാഭ്യാം ഗുരുഭക്തിദാഭ്യാം വൈരാഗ്യ സാമ്രാജ്യ തപോജനാഭ്യാം നമോ നമഃ ശ്രീ ഗുരുപാദുകാഭ്യാം കവിത്വവാരാശിനിശാകരാഭ്യാം ദൗർഭാഗ്യദാവാം ഭൂതമാലികാഭ്യാം ദൂരീകൃതാനം പ്രവിഭക്തധീഭ്യാം നമോ നമഃ ശ്രീ ഗുരുപാദുകാഭ്യാം നഥായയോ ശ്രീപതിതാം സമീയോ കദാചിദപ്യാശു ദരിദ്രവര്യാഃ മൂകാശ്ച വാചസ്പതിതാം ഹിതാഭ്യാം നമോ നമഃ ശ്രീ ഗുരുപാദുകാഭ്യാം മാലീകനീകാശപദാഹൃദാഭ്യാം നാനാവിമോഹാദിനിവാരികാഭ്യാം നമജ്ജനാഭീഷ്ടതതിപ്രദാഭ്യാം നമോ നമഃ ശ്രീ ഗുരുപാദുകാഭ്യാം നൃപാലിമൗലി ഭൃജരത്നകാന്തി സരിദ്ധിരാജകന്യകാഭ്യാം നൃപത്വദാഭ്യാം നതലോകപങ്ക്തി നമോ നമഃ ശ്രീ ഗുരുപാദുകാഭ്യാം പാപാന്തകാരാർക്കപരംപരാഭ്യാം താപത്രയാഹീന്ദ്രഗഗേശ്വരാഭ്യാം ജാഢ്യാബ്ധി സംശോഷണവാഢവാഭ്യാം നമോ നമഃ ശ്രീ ഗുരുപാദുകാഭ്യാം ശമാധിഷട്ക പ്രദവൈഭവാഭ്യാം സമാധിദാന വൃദധീക്ഷിതാഭ്യാം രമാന്തവാധി വാന്ത്രി സ്ഥിരഭക്തിദാഭ്യാം നമോ നമഃ ശ്രീ ഗുരുപാദുകാഭ്യാം സ്വാർച്ചാപരാണാം അഖിലേഷ്ടദാഭ്യാം സ്വാഹാ സഹായാക്ഷധുരന്ധരാഭ്യാം സ്വാന്താച്ച ഭാവപ്രദപൂജനാഭ്യാം നമോ നമഃ ശ്രീ ഗുരുപാദുകാഭ്യാം കാമാദിസർപ്പഭുജഗാരുധാഭ്യാം വിവേകവൈരാഗ്യനിധിപ്രദാഭ്യാം ബോധപ്രദാഭ്യാം ധൃതമോക്ഷദാഭ്യാം നമോ നമഃ ശ്രീ ഗുരുപാദുകാഭ്യാം നമോ നമഃ ശ്രീ ഗുരുപാദുകാഭ്യാം മൂകം കരോതി വാചാലം അംഗം ലംഘയതി ഗിരിം യത്കൃപാതമഹം വന്ദേ പരമാനന്ദമാധവം യം ബ്രഹ്മാ വരുണേന്ദ്രരുദ്രമരുതഃ സുന്വന്തി ദിവ്യൈസ്തവൈ വേദൈः സാംഗമപത്രമോപനിഷദേ ഗായന്തി യം സാമഗാഃ ധ്യാനാവസ്ഥിതതദ്ഗതേന മനസാ പശ്യന്തി യം യോഗിനോ യസ്യാന്തം ന വിദുഃസുരാസുരഗണ ദേവായ തസ്മൈ നമഃ सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यो मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः। Slokas 21 to 30. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Shri Krishna Paramatmani Namaha. Adha Shashtodhyayaha Dhyana Yogaha Shri Bhagavanuvacham Sugamatyandigam Yattad बुद्धिग्राह्यमतीन्द्रियं वेति यत्र न चैवायं स्थितश्चलति तत्त्वतः यं लब्ध्वा चापरं लाभं मन्यते नाधिकं ततः यस्मिन् स्थितो न दुःखेन गुरुणापि विचाल्यते तं विद्या दुःखसंयोगम् वियोगं योगसंज्ञितं सनिश्चयेन योक्तव्य योगो निर्विण्णचेतसा सङ्कल्पप्रभवान् कामान् त्यक्त्वा सर्वान् शेषतः मनस्सैवेन्द्रियग्रामं विनियम्य समन्ततः शनैः शनैरुपरमे बुद्ध्या धृति गृहीतया आत्मसंस्थं मनः कृत्वा न किञ्चिदपि चिन्तयेत् यतो यतो निश्चरति मनश्चञ्चलमस्थिरं ततस्तो नियमेतत् आत्मन्येव वशं नयेत् प्रशान्तमनसं येनं योगिनं सुखमुत्तमम् उपैति शान्तरजसं ब्रह्मभूतमकल्मषं युञ्जन्नेवं सदात्मानं योगी विगतकल्मषः सुखेन ब्रह्म संस्पर्शम् अत्यन्तं सुखमश्नुते सर्वभूतस्थमात्मानं सर्वभूतानि चात्मनि ईक्षते योगयुक्तात्मा सर्वत्र समदर्शिनः यो मां पश्यति सर्वत्र सर्वं च मयि पश्यति तस्याहं न प्रणश्यामि स च मे न प्रणश्यति। ॐ तत्सत्।
Hari Om. Thank you, Sukumarji. Hari Om. Dilip ji is not there, so we will skip the recap session. Now I will move to the today's verses. Yato yato nishcharti manaschancchalam ashritam tatastato niyam yetyad atmani eva vasam nayet. Yet from whatever cause wanders away, nishchit wanders away, mana mind, chanchalam restless, asthiram unsteady, tataha from that, niyam having restraint, itat this, atmini in the self, eva alone, vasham under control, nayet let him bring. From whatever cause the restless and the unsteady mind wanders away, from that let him restrain it and bring it back under the control of the self alone. Every student who tries to understand the above two verses and puts them into the practice should necessarily come to despair at his own incapacity to control the mind and fix it constantly in the contemplation of the self. In the utter despair, every seeker must come to realize that the mind irresistibly wanders away from its point of concentration because the mind is by nature restless, chanchal, and unsteady, asthir. It can neither constantly think of one object or consistently think of different objects. By these two terms qualifying the mind, restlessness and unsteadiness, Krishna has brought out a vivid and a realistic picture of the entire mind as it is experienced by all the true seekers striving on the path of meditation. There are two phrases. Uh, these two phrases are so impressive that we shall find later on that Arjuna himself, while crystallizing his doubts into the language, uses them quite naturally. Thus, during the practice, even though the seekers has brought his sense organs to a large extent under his control, still the mind, disturbed by the memories of the past experience, would shoot out in search of its sense objects. There are moments of dejection and even despair for the seekers. These wanderings of the mind may be due to the very reason, the very these wanderings of the mind may be due to very many reasons. The memory of the past, the near presence of some tempting objects, the association of ideas, some attachments or aversion, or maybe even the very spiritual aspiration of the seeker. Lord Krishna's instruction here is very categorical and all embracing. He says, whatever be the reason because of which the restless and the unsteady mind wanders away, the seeker is not to despair, but should understand that it is the nature of the mind to wander, and that very process of meditation is only the technique to stop this wandering. Let him bring it back. The seeker is advised to bring back the mind that has, as if it were rushed out into its own self-appointed dissimilar channels of thinking. This withdrawal of mind may be successful to a degree by sheer willpower, but as soon as it reach the bosom, it will and it should rush out again into another fancied line of thinking. Very rarely the sadhaks realize that the mind means the flow of thought. A steady, motionless mind is no mind at all. Therefore, in the technique of meditation, when the mind is withdrawn from the sense objects, this very process of withdrawal is to be contemplated by the conscious effort on the part of the meditator in applying the same mind at once in contemplation of the self. This idea has been remarkably well brought out when the Lord complements his instructions by the term bringing it under the sway of the self alone. In the following few stanzas explain the effect of the yoga of meditation upon its true practitioner. Prashant manasam yeyenam yoginam sukham uttamam upayati sanshant rajasam brahma bhuta akalmasham. Prashant manasam, one of the peaceful mind, he verily inam, this yoginam, yogi, sukham, bliss, uttamam, supreme, upeti, comes, shantarajasam, one whose passion is quietened, brahma bhutam, brahma becomes, akalasham, one who is free from the sin. Supreme bliss verily comes into this yogi whose mind is quite peaceful, whose passion is quietened, who is free from sin and has become Brahman. As we have now indicated in the previous stanza, when an individual's mind has been arrested from his agitated roamings in the world of objects and fixed consistently upon the self, by the degrees, the mind gathers more and more quietude, and ultimately, when the flow of thought cases, the mind also ends. Where the mind has ended, there the individual is awakened to the experience of infinite nature of the self. Naturally, the meditator comes to the supreme bliss. An intelligent inquirer has every right to question this assertion. For in a true science, the scientist has no right to assert at random his own opinion without arguments and to expect student to glop it down all immediately down. In the second line of the verse, in the second line of the verse are given reasons how the quietened mind is open window through which the prospect of the self comes to our view. The mind, thus held steady in the inner atmosphere of chilled silence, comes to drop off all the previous vasanas. The mind gets freed from all the taint, al kalmasham. In the Vedanta, technically the impurities of the mind are called mala, and it is considered as constituted of the spiritual non-recognition and the consequent mental agitations. The willing power, avarana, generated by the inertia of intellect, tamas, creates in its wake disturbing agitations in the mental zone. The agitation nuisance in the mind is most prominent when it is under the influence of rajogun. The Vedantic theory explaining the fall of man to sorrow is fully echoed in terms used by the Lord here. Passions quietened, shanta rajasam, and free from taint, akalmasham. An individual in whom all agitations have ceased and consequently who has become perfectly free from the ignorance of the reality should naturally be considered as one who has regained his knowledge of the self. As long as there is agitation, so long there is mind. And the self identified with the mind is the ego. Who has the seeker? Who was the seeker who started meditating in the above process of meditation? When, as it is explained, the meditator has exposed his mind to the atmosphere of inner peace and quietude, he comes to end completely all his mental agitations, and therefore the ego rediscovers itself to be nothing other than the self. This non dualistic truth has been openly declared by the Lord through his brilliant phrase Brahman becomes Brahmabhutaha in describing the man of self realization. Hari Om. So the two verses under discussion, verses 26 and 27, the Lord has very categorically explained to all of us that that meditation is the way of achieving self-realization, because until and unless one's mind is under control, so even for bringing the mind back into the control, one has to continuously keep meditating upon the self. If one in the line here in Gurudev has very clearly explained that the mind to wander, and that the very process of meditation is the only technique of stop this wandering, because the mind, as we all know very clearly from all our experiences, that the mind doesn't stays at one place. It keeps moving into different channels of thoughts all the time, every time. Even if you try to bring it under control through willpower, after just few moments you realize that again it has gone into something. And the Lord, who is the creator of this mind, is himself explaining here that how this mind works. So it is written in this text that the technique of controlling the mind is through meditation only. So all those of us who feel that we are too naive to start meditation in this stage should realize that meditation is like a medicine for us. We have to start using it, utilizing it, and uh, that is how only we will start gathering control over our mind. Because if you don't do meditation, you will not be able to get mind under control. So this is very clearly explained in verse 26. In the verse 27, the Lord has saying that that there could be many uh, reasons because of which you are not able to meditate, and the impurities of the mind, the mala is there, the avarana is there, and then the buddhi is tainted with tamas. So, but the only way of getting out of all this is through meditation. And once your mind has reached the quietude, you start realizing that uh, the mind itself will become easier to manage first, and then it is the next step, which is killing the mind, which is like the mind ceases to exist. And once the mind has ceased to exist, the self in the is the one which gets awakened, and you realize yourself that you are the truth, you are the Brahman. This is what is being explained in verse 27. So this killing of mind is something which is very difficult to achieve. We all know it is a big challenge, even at the highest level, when with most disciplined people. And but this is the only way of coming out of it. So these two verses, for me, they become more and more, they show us the correct direction. At the same time, they give us the right technique of approaching the process of self-realization. This is my take on it. Hari Om. Now I would request Balaji to share his views on these two verses.
Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sadgurunath Maharaj ki jai. So voice is clear, able to hear, Manish?
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
So last week we have seen how the powering force to the mind should be shanair, slowly managed, and how we have to take the help of the intellect to control the mind and thereby our actions. So that was the overall summary of the last week discussions. Some of the important words was that Sankalpa Prabhavam. And the word Sankalpa was discussed quite elaborately by Gurudev. And not all thoughts. Sankalpa essentially means those thoughts which are aspiring for the fruits of actions. So that is what Gurudev has given very beautifully here. Renunciation of such agitation breeding desires. Agitation breeding desires. That is meant as Sankalpa. That is one important word that we need to keep in mind. And again, Shanair only, it is possible gradually by the technique of moderation and with the help of the intellect is what we can control. But for all of these things to happen, the value system of the intellect must be developed through knowledge. And this knowledge is nothing but Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. With that one concept in mind, the discrimination process must be triggered, and by the process of discrimination, sublimation of agitation causing or agitation breeding thoughts would be slowly discarded, and then the mind would be established in the self-Om. So in the BMI chart, which really helps us to understand these shlokas more effectively, we see that we are this, through the process of dhyana and contemplation, we will be, ultimately it is possible for every one of us to become yogis. So this is the concept. Yoga is to be aligned with the self in us. The self in us to be understood as nothing other than the Brahman in us, manifesting as the very principle of life, the consciousness without which we don't function. And these personalities of our body, gross, mind, subtler than the body, and intellect, subtler than the mind, have to work in unison and get rooted and aligned with this self in us is the very theme of discussions happening in this particular chapter. So on realizing that self, then what are the outcome? What would the yogi experience has been described in many places, and that theme continues to be elaborated in today's verses also 26 and 27. Now, since there was no briefing of last week's class, I had so far tried to summarize what has been discussed. And accordingly, now in today's verses, 26, this is one of the very famous verses and one of the verses where Bhagavan declares the nature of mind. Now, if you want to control something, or if you want to manage something, generally, we have to have the knowledge of that particular thing that we want to manage, right? So without knowing what we are going to manage, how can we manage? So what are we trying to manage here? Now, you may observe that out of these three personalities, Gurudev always says this, majority wins. Out of these three, there has to be two successful personalities together to perform any action or not to perform any action. For both these conditions, two of these three personalities have to be together. Think carefully. You want to act, and you don't act by yourself, but there is a force from inside, which is we call as the vasanas manifesting in the mind as this sankalpa prabhavam. It comes and pushes you outward, and then you fall prey to whatever you want to do. That path is called the path of prayers, because it preys on you. So you become addicted, then you become the slave, the mind becomes the boss, and then everything is an emotionally driven personality or sensuality driven personality is the outcome of such one. So there, the mind aligns with the body, meaning the sense organs, which again are captivated by the OET, and a PFT is strengthened, and everything to protect the vanity of that PFT is enacted upon the mind aligned with the body. Now, what has been suggested to us is that please consult the intellect always. Without the intellect, there is no functioning of the mind by itself. That is disaster. Therefore, when the mind aligns itself with the intellect, which is subtler, the subjective mind also, Gurudev says in the very introduction, the subjective mind and the objective mind, when it integrates, then there is this birth of this new avenue, which then turns itself towards the Atman and the self, and the U-turn, which is advocated in the Vedanta, really happens, for which we have to sit in the meditation. Now, when in that process, in the meditative seat, when we are sitting, there is every possibility that this mind, by its very nature, wanders away. Okay, so now we just understood that the mind is something which is indispensable. Whatever you want to do objective activity or subjective activity, the mind has to be tamed. So one fundamental definition of mind, which Gurudev often gives, even in Kindle life, meditation and life, here also, very important, very, very important, is to understand the mind is nothing but a flow of thoughts. Just to be born in, we have to remember very clearly that a single thought doesn't make a mind. First, the nature of the mind is chanchala and astiram. These are two important words we have to remember, because we have to know what we are going to manage. And the very mind, in the last paragraph, Gurudev clearly says that very, very rarely do the sadhaks realize that the mind means flow of thoughts. This is something which we have to remember very, very clearly. As last session also, we discussed this. What did we discuss? That important aspect of where from the mind gets its power, from the vasanas. Vasanas manifest in the intellect as desire, and then manifest in the mind as agitations, and manifest in the body as the action finally. So it is the vasanas that are getting manifested in these three personality layers, right? So exactly then when it is manifesting in the mind, it then causes number of agitations, that is the agitations breeding thoughts. So the sankalpam manifests in the mind. And when it manifests in the mind, when we are having a number of thoughts, sequence of thoughts, right? And very often, because it is astiram, it becomes dissimilar thoughts. When it is stiram, it becomes similar nature of thoughts. Now, this is to be understood very, very clearly, and that is what is that Atmanyeva vasam. You have to control this mind by the similar thoughts leading to the inner direction, which is the Atman, by giving sufficient strength to the intellect, and developing this intellect, which becomes the bhakti, or this bhakti again is developed by knowing the mahima. So what is the treatment for this intellect? The jnana, nama mahima, rupa mahima, or the vibhuti mahima of the Lord. So just like you understand how the mind is captivated by the OET, by understanding, you say that, oh, that is a very beautiful form, or it gives a beautiful taste, or it gives a beautiful effect. So you are the spiritual ignorance which blinds us and tells that what is not true. You believe that it becomes true, right? And then that is called the avarna, which is also described here in the 27th verse. So these are all basic concepts that needs to be kept in mind. The avarna is believing that what the OET will give you security and happiness. That is the avarna. And because you tend to believe that the OET will give you happiness and security, and that is must be the purushartha, actually, that must be the goal which we all chase. With this idea, when we function, then the mind generates its own story, and the BFT, the vanity, becomes thicker and thicker, the ego, right? So this becomes what is called as the Vikshepa Shakti, the projection, the dream. With that one wrong idea, you start projecting, and this dissimilar thoughts goes on multiplying. There is no end to it. This is what is the function of Avarna and Vikshepa. And Gurudev in his commentary has connected to what is the root cause of these things. The root cause of Avarna is Tamasa Guna. And the root cause of Vikshepa is the Rajas Guna. And therefore that in the 27th verse, you see that word Shanta Rajasam. So the passion must be arrested. How will you arrest a river? And another thing, this concept of intellect and mind, Gurudev beautifully describes with this example of a river being the mind and the banks of the river becoming the intellect. So if you want to channelize and guide the mind, then we have to have a strong bank. Embankment must be done to channelize the flow of water. That flow of water equals to flow of thoughts, and the river equals to the mind in this analogy. The banks have to be the intellect. Embankment must be strong, for which we need this value system. Jnana, bhakti must be developed for the intellect to control and manage the mind. So this is the overall theme that is being discussed. Where from it the embankment will get its strength? From the Atman, the self, which is of the nature of Satchit and Anandam, that supreme bliss is always pointed out in all the results of meditation. So sequally, if you just as a summary for this 27th verse, Shanta Rajasam, step number 1, leads to Akalmasam, ceasing of agitations. Sins here refer, you know that the sin is nothing but agitations of mind, right? So just understand the whole thing from the point of mind and intellect and the BMI chart. If you look into it, you will understand that Shanta Rajasam is cooling down the agitated mind, which is driven by the passions towards the OET. That can be managed by the intellect, which is for which we need the strengths that we have discussed just now. So the sequence is Shanta Rajasam, followed by Akalmasam. Then you become Brahma Bhutam, because the mind cannot remain in suspense. The mind has to get attached to something. It has to travel from the OET towards the higher, nobler nature of the Atman. So therefore, once that alignment happens, then slowly, slowly it gets merged into that itself. It acquires the property of the Atma, the mind, and it ultimately disappears. The salt doll example, we understand very clearly that one. So this one, Shantarajasam, 2, Akalmasham, 3, Brahmabhutam. So when we reach that Brahmabhutam, becoming one with the Brahman, then you acquire the properties of the Brahman, which is at best described as Prashanta Manasam and Upaiti Yoginam Sukha Uttamam. So Uttamam Sukham is attained by the yogin, and his state of mind is Prashanta Manasam. So this is the result. But the cause and the effort means is the Shanta Rajasam, and Akalmasham. If it is there, then Brahmabhutam will happen. So Kindle Life chapter number 8, reading this chapter number 8 of Kindle Life will be very, very helpful. Very beautifully there the sequence has been given. The example of a receiving clerk performing his duty without consulting the officer has been taken as an example. The receiving clerk in an office being the mind and the intellect being the officer. When the officer by himself performs the actions or decisions are taken without consulting the officer, then the chaos, there is an entire chaos, and you move away from the target. So when the mind as the receiving clerk, when it is receiving the impulses from the OET, when it is consulting with the intellect, then it is properly directed towards the goal of life. So this again is a very beautiful example given by Gurudev in that mind and man. So managing the mind, first we have to understand the mind. And also this paragraph where yata yata nischarati, yato yato nischarati, from whatever, it is getting distracted. A full list has, a suggestive list has been given by Gurudev in the paragraph in that in the commentary, which is again very important. So fundamentally, again, it comes down to the level of likes and dislikes. So this likes and dislikes is what keeps driving you away or driving you towards the mind to a particular object, feeling, idea, and all of those things. I also just to summarize, I mean, before I close, I thought this analogy of the bike, a bike, you want to manage a bike, you want to control a bike. Yeah, so the bike, meaning I'm comparing the mind to a bike, wherein in the front side, looking outward, it gets its impulses from the OET. Okay, and then when you see an object, a desire arises, an action consequently comes. But suppose there are no objects in the seat of meditation, there are no objects physically that you're seeing, but the trigger comes from the memories of the past, good experience, bad experience, whatever it may be. So therefore you have to control both from the front side and from the rear side. So it is like balancing a bike for which you need a front brake and a back brake. The front brake is the management of the sense organs, and the back brake is the using the intellect to manage the mind from the backside. Okay, so this is just a overall. I wanted to revise myself and also share this with all of you. Hari Om, Sadguru Nath Maharaj ki Jai.
Hari Om. Suresh ji.
Hari Om, Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. I have some problem with the eye watering, so that is the reason I will switch off this camera, so it will be nice. Today, the two slogans under discussion, which is the 26th and the 27th verses of the Gita, which is Yado Yado Nischaradi Manat Chanjalam Astiram Tadastado Nyemyade Atmavanyam Vasham Naye. 27 Prashanta Manasam Kyanam yoganam sukham uttamam ubedi shandarajasam brahmabhudam agalmasham. The Anaya is for the 26th verse is Anjalam, Chanjalam, Astiram, Mana, Yada Yada, Nischaradi, Tada Tada, Edat, Niyamya, Almani, Eva, Vasham, Nayet. 27, when we are seeing the Anaya, it is he prashanta manasam yenam yoginam uttamam shantam rajasam agalmasham brahmabhudam sukham ubaidi. See, in the last week, we have seen the very, very important two verses we have seen. And in the 25th verse, the Bhagavan is saying that how difficult to control the mind. It is not easy. It is extremely difficult to control the mind because the nature of the wandering of the mind. So one of the tip is given in the 25th verse, na kinchidabi chindayat. Even though, it is going out of your capacity or the control, you have to control atma samstam manakrutva na kinchidabi chindayat. You have to keep the mind with yourself. Should not think kinchit abhi na chindayat. Should not think anything else. It is saying that. And the second tip the technique we can see in the 26th verse, which is saying that Atmanyeva Vasham Nayed. It is saying that 26th verse, which is teaching us from whatever cause the restless and the unsteady mind wanders away, from that, let him restrain it and bring it back to be under the control of the self alone. And this is the second technique is saying that. It is saying that bring it back to under the control of the self alone. So it is saying that what is the nature of the mind? It is saying, here we can see that the nature of the mind is the restless and the unsteady. These are the two, Chanjalam and Astiram. These are the nature of the mind. So it is very difficult to control. Always it is wandering the mind. And in Yoga Vasishtam also, Vasishta Muni is saying that the nature of the mind, it is Abhyapti Panan Mahado Sumeru Mulanat Abhi Abhimanya Asana Sadho Vishamas Nigraha. Apyapti Panan Mahado Sumeru Unmulanadabi Abhi Vanya Asanas Sadho Vishama Chitta Nigraha. So that much difficult, even though a sadhu also, he is struggling to control his mind, same like, to how to drink the water from the ocean and empty the ocean, or how to remove or uproot the Sumeru mountain. Sumeru Unmulanadavi. The third example is given Abhi Vanyan Anasadhu. Vani. Vani means the fire. How to swallow the fire. So that much difficult. Three examples are given here. How to empty the water from the ocean by drinking, how we can empty the ocean, or how to remove the Sumeru mountain, or the third one is how to swallow the Vani. So that much difficult it is. And if you look at the 6th chapter, especially, we can see that an elaborated commentary is given by Madhusudana Saraswati, and particularly this 26th verse, he is given the commentary in 3-4 pages, and he was explaining under the light of the Mandukya Karika, the Advaita Prakaranam, and in the light of the Chandogya Upanishad also. I'm sure that Sanjay ji is going to touch base with that portion. So even though I would like to say that in the Advaita Prakaranam, verse number 41 also, it is given a very nice example, which is very much applicable in this context. Ulsega Udayer Dayat Kushagreenega Binduna Manaso Nigras Adut Paveda Parikeda. It is a slogan, the 41 verse of the Advaita Prakarana. It is a story is taken from the Hitopadesha, in Vidyaranya Swamigal in Panchadashi, and Madhusudana Saraswati in his Bhagavad commentary also, he was quoting this story. And many other places also we can see that, which is saying that the mind can be brought under the control only by the relentless effort like that which is required to empty the ocean drop by drop with the help of the fawn tip of the kusha grass blade. It is a very famous story from the Hitopadesha. The bird kept the eggs in the shore of the sea, and there is a tide is coming, and this high tide, and the waves is drawn out this eggs, and when the bird is coming back, the bird saw that the egg is missing from there, and he found that okay, it was drowning in the water, and it is far away. Then the bird went and he brought a tip of the kusha grass. You know that the kusha grass. He brought the kusha grass, and he was trying to empty the ocean by tipping off the drop, the water drop by drop. And then Garuda was seeing this incident, and Garuda was coming and trying to help the bird, and the ocean is going to empty, and the Varuna is appeared there and given back the egg. It is like that. So that much effort, the message from this story is saying that it is that much difficult to control the mind. And it is clearly mentioned here that the nature is the ajanchalam and the astiram also. So that much difficult it is. And then it is saying that the another process is saying that in the 27th verse, Prashanta Manasam Kyanam Yoganam Sukham Uttamam Uvedi Shanda Rajasam Brahma Bodham Agalmasham. This is the 27th verse is saying that supreme bliss verily comes to this yogi whose mind is quite peaceful, whose passion is quietened, who is free from sin and has become Brahman. So we have to eradicate the passion, the Rajasa gunam, the tamasic and the Rajasic quality, when it is vanishing or eradicating, definitely the mind will be quietude. And when you are reaching to that level, the sattvic stage, then definitely he has become the Brahman. So this is a technique. So keep on control your mind and remove the rajas quality also, and then your mind can integrate with the chittam, and then it is became the Brahman. So this is the practice level which we can see in the 27th verse. And here also, as a very nice example, Balaji is given the motorbike. There are two-way control. So it is like that in the Gita also, the second chapter, 50th verse is saying that how the yoga karma kausalam. Yoga is efficiently in action. What efficiency? Efficiency means we need to have the double efficiency. Double efficiency means outward work efficiently and inward spiritual efficiency. The work efficiency outwardly we need, and inwardly we need the spiritual efficiency also. So the double efficiency we need to have a yogi. So these are the lessons we can understand from this verses. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you, Suresh. Dilipji, you are now available. Would you like to share your views of the recap which
No, Manishji, Hari Om, I'm not prepared for that, Manishji. Just outside the house. Hari Om.
Okay. Nanduji, would you like to share your views today?
Hari Om. On today's sloka, just I would like to express my gratitude towards the Guru Purnima recently this week, which is happened. Sadashiva Samarambha Shankaracharya Vidyamam Asmadacharya Parintam Vande Guru Parampara.
Nanduji, voice is not clear. Can you come closer to the mic, please?
Hello, can you hear now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So the Guru Parampara, which is started from the Bhagavan Sadashiva and Acharya being in middle of that, and the Asmadacharya Parintam, which is like a Gurudev, and the Swami Vivekananda, Ramakrishna Paramahansa, all the Gurudevas, gratitude towards them, and the our day-to-day Acharya, Dr. Sanjay ji also, our sincere gratitude towards him. On the today's shloka, we are learning, studying about the Dhyana Yoga and 26 and 27 shloka. And especially from the 11th shloka to 32 shloka, which is like descriptively expressed about the Dhyana Yoga by Bhagwan. And when Bhagwan is saying Gita to Arjuna, this is not only for Arjuna, this is for me. We need to understand about that. And very well explained by Balaji Maharaj and as well as Sureshji. And basically like a nature of mind itself is like a flickering or unstable. And we need to control that and bring it on one point. And the one example about the chariot, which is from the Kathopanishad. So the Kathopanishad, what it is saying, like there are like 5 horses, which are like our body being a chariot. Then the 5 horses, which are running on these like Panch Vishayas, which is about Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasa Gandha. And the Jiva being a Rathi, and our intellect being as a Sarathi. And we need to control that. And this is not easy task. And we have already discussed that several times. And just to go back again, I have mentioned maybe in earlier also, the perfectly matching to this shloka number 26, like in Marathi, it says like, and Rajendra ji also mentioned that maybe in South also there is something it is mentioned about like, ja ja thikani mana jaye माझे त्या त्या ठिकाणी निज रूप तुझे. Means wherever my mind is going, I should be able to see my Gurudeva, or maybe like Lord, whoever maybe we are worshiping, maybe Sri Rama, Sri Krishna, whatever, So that's how maybe we can try to, because it's very difficult to bring mind. Okay, bring control mind and control and do what? Unless until you will not give him something other, it is not going to set. And that's why the like bhakti or maybe upasana is there, And maybe this final shlokas from the Dhyana Yoga. Now we are going to move on the like Twampad we have already finished, and maybe we are going to that part, which is like about like bhakti or upasana. And Samartha Ramdasa, he's mentioning like only one OV. It's like Jnana manje Atmadnan, pahave apnasi apan. Means Jnana means it's about Atmadnan. And what is about that? Pahave apnasi apan. You need to see yourself. Now, seeing yourself is like very difficult. But with the whatever shloka mentioned in the 20th shloka, we need to control the mind, and that is possible, and that can be happen. One of the saintly person, he mentioned very nicely about the like mind is like a fly or bee. It is going like everywhere. It will go on the maybe sweet, or maybe it will go on the any bad things also. That flea or that fly or bee, it will sit there, but it will not go towards the fire, because that bee or maybe fly know that if I will go towards the fire, then I'll be get killed. That's how like mind is. Mind is, if it is trying to, if we are set on the feet of like Gurudev or Lord, it is very difficult. It is not resting there, because mind also know that once I will go there, I will finish. And once mind is finished, our job is done. So that's how a little bit on the 26th sloka. On the 27th sloka, and for the sorry, on the 26th sloka, one more thing is about like all the Swamis we know, like Swami Vivekananda, Swami Chinmayananda. So why the name is Swami? And just I read it and just want to share about that. Whoever is having control on all these things, on the all the Vishayas or whatever, that's how they get the name as a like Swami. So who is having Swami of all those things. And on the 27th shloka, there is like a complementary shloka for that, which is from the 18th chapter of Gita, which is like a Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, na Shochita na Kanchati, Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhakti Labate Param. So which is talking about here, like as I mentioned, like we are slowly moving towards little bit bhakti, and then like we all know that nine types of bhakti are there, and which is the final bhakti, which is like atma nivedanam, and that is the real bhakti. And such a person who is having like atma nivedana, then he will be like liberated. And the word which is come as like a shanta rajasam. So shanta rajasam. So, and just going back a little bit on the third chapter, we have seen that kama isha, krodha isha. So whether my kama, krodha, is it within the control? Then only I can say that, okay, I'm out of maybe rajoguna and the sattva which is required for all these things. Those are my small thoughts. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you, Namuji. Rajendran ji, please.
Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om, we can hear you. Please go ahead. I think we have lost Rajendran ji in the connection. Sudesh ji, would you like to share your views?
No. Thank you. Hari Om.
Okay. And
Can you-
Sharma ji?
Hari Om. Hello. Hari Om.
Okay, Hari Om. Yes, Rajendran ji, please go ahead.
Can you hear me? My lab has
Yes, we can hear you.
I forgot to switch it on. The power button was off. The battery finished and it is not. Yeah. It is very nicely explained by Balaji and Sureshji, also Nanduji. Very good examples are given here. Actually, the problem is we are forced by this external world to think on different lines, and the world makes our mind very helpless by driving from one thing to another continuously with no stop. This is the problem. Whatever efforts we make, it is not happening actually. That is the reason in 34th verse Arjuna was saying, Chanjala Himana Krishna Pramadi Balavadridam Tasyaham Nigraham Manye Vayoriva Sudushkaram. It is difficult. Vayoriva, it's like arresting the wind. Very difficult. We have very good examples given by Balaji, saying to break the like a good analogy by citing an example of a motorbike which can be stopped. It should be stopped by both brakes from front and rear. Very good example. And also Suryaji was citing some examples from the Yoga Vasishta. You know, these are typical examples that we know this. I mean, we have heard about this. Like it is difficult to drink the entire water of the ocean or swallowing the fire and things like those, which is, you know, tasks are very difficult because the external world is compelling us to run from one thing to another, Vicheba and Avarana. Here, from whatever Guruji, I mean, the stanza is giving an idea. In second chapter, we are learning that in fifth sloka, there are 2-3 slokas behind before that. Yogastha Kuru Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Dhananjaya Siddhya Siddhyo Samo Bhutva Samatvam Yoga Uchyade. Durena Hyavaram Karmaha Buddhi Yoga Dhananjaya Buddhau Sharanavanishcha Kripana Balahayatava. All these things. Then Buddhi Yukto Jahadiha Ube Sukrita Dushkride Tasmad Yogaya Yujaswa Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. All these things we have learned. Still, this chapter, particular chapter of Dhyana Yoga, I think it is the most difficult idea that is being taught here. But without learning this idea, we will not succeed in our life. That is an important thing. So the stanza here says, Yado Yado Nischaradi Manas Chanjalam Astiram Tadastado Niyamyaitat Atmanyeva Vasham Nayet. Here important terms you have cited, Chanjalam and Astiram. The characteristic of the nature of the mind is Chanjalam and it is Astiram. It is creating a Viksheba, an Avarana, a veil, and then make thousands of Vikshebas. This is the problem. It is hiding the Atma Swarupam and making all temporary things, and it is attracting us. It is pulling us to them. This is the problem. If we, you know, in daily life, whatever we do, there is an option, one option, another option, hundreds of options. Kartum va, anyata kartum. We have options, many options. You go to a hotel and ask them something to eat, they will bring the menu card. Sir, if you ask, yeah, which is there, khane ko. So they will bring the menu card and ask you, choose your item ko choose kijiye. Then your mind goes to dosa, vada, idli, many items, and triggers your what do you call the taste buds. we don't want. We want something to eat. We don't want to be pulled by this, you know, a taste of the items. Something to eat that they will not give like this. They want us to choose the item. You know, so our external world is compelling us, forcefully compelling us to these things. You go to a textile shop. This is the problem. We cannot, you know, kuch kapda do aisa. We cannot say that. So, in practical life, this is the issue. Let us. So, I don't have to tell. You know, I don't want to take much time. Then some. Gurudev has cited some typical things where our mind is being driven away. The wanderings of the mind may be due to very many reasons: the memory of the past, the near vicinity of some tempting objects, the association of ideas, some attachment or aversion, or maybe even very spiritual aspiration of the seeker. So there are many things like this that drives our mind to various objects. So once we have to, the stanza says, from whatever cause the restless and unsteady mind wanders away, from that let him restrain it and bring it back to be under the control of self alone. So Gurudev used to say, in his discourses, thoughts will come and go. Consider them as uninvited guests. Don't pay attention to them. That is his. He used another example. He used to say, when I was sitting in meditation, all of a sudden, in the biology class, one Meenakshi was studying with me. She came into the mind. So has she invited her? No, but she is coming. So he says, this is the problem. She was uninvited. I ignored him. What else can I do? So that is so we have to, good examples are given. Now, when we come to I don't want to take much time. When to the next session, next stanza 27. Prashanta manasam hyenam yoginam sukham uttamam upaidi shandarasam brahma bhutam akalmasham. Here the Brahma, by doing all this, we are Brahma bhuta. This is the key word here. I have noticed this word as very key word. Brahma sutra, sorry. Brahma bhutam akalmasham. Akalmasham Brahma bhutam. So that is the interest. That is the essential, key word of in this stanza. Supreme bliss verily comes to the yogi, whose mind is quite peaceful, whose passion is quietened, who is free from sin, and who has become Brahman. So the result of arresting these various thoughts ultimately enables us to come to the self, our own self, where all these sins, all these varieties of things will be vanished away. But again, we should remember that the task is very difficult, but we have no alternative but to keep on trying and trying as much as we can. That is the only solution. There is no point in saying that it is difficult. It is difficult, but we have to continuously try. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you, Rajendra ji. Mudit ji, would you like to share your views on this today?
No, I'm fine, please.
शर्मा जी हैं?
जी हरिओम, शर्मा जी हैं. हरिओम, हरिओम. And I know there's, श्लोक this are about telling us about the Savikalp Samadhi, right? अभी इसमें most of it has been spoken by Balaji and Rajendran. But one thing, which struck me when Nandu was speaking about that example, which is a fantastic example of the fly and the fire. Now, at that time, what I started thinking and analyzing the same thing. Now the fly is not going towards the fire; it knows it will burn. Now, if we are in that situation, then we have to go to the fire, which is a Jnanagni. Because Jnanagni is the only Jnan which can remove the Akalmash. Akalmash in the 27th shlok, it is not what Mal has been talked about by, previous others. this mal is the akalmash mal, vikshep rahit mal. In this case, whatever we are seeing duality, in that you have to see only Brahma Bhut. So that mal makes us see the duality. That mal has to be cleared. So bhed roop mal, the differentiation, we are differenting usse rahit, and then anatma vastu, see whatever is anatma vastu, we don't fall in the affection towards that. Uski apriti ho, we just don't even feel. So if we see a person, there's a rag dosh with him, then we don't see that person as a person, uski apriti nahi honi chahiye. It should just the Brahma in him. Baki to uski harkat hai, the elements rajas, tamas, and sattva, that is making him function whatever he's doing. So it's not the body's fault. So we just don't see that. Only then it will come to that situation, where we get those Shant Rajasam, Brahma Bhut, and Akalmash. So these are very good sthiti which has been given of the man. Now, but the thing is, these are the like awards which will happen if you do an next thing. Now, because Arjun was not in that situation, going back to the initial stage of Mahabharata, where he had put his Gandhi, with his hands were shaking and all. So he was seeing duality, right? He was seeing different. So here Bhagavan has taken off explaining A, how a person functions, B, what makes him do what he's doing, and see how we can do what he's supposed to be doing, where he has become the yogastha. Even yoga is just, just now Rajendraji said about the slok from Dvitiya Adhyay, that even the yuddha has to be done in a yoga form. That's why, in the later portion after the Mahabharata gets over and the Pandavas start ruling the kingdom, at that time again Arjun gets a little confused. So he wants to know Bhagavad Gita again. He says, "Bhai, mera smriti ho gayi hai, mere ko aap कृपया मुझे भगवत गीता वापस सुनाइए करके." So Bhagavan said, "It is not possible. Even I cannot do this right now, because उस time योग युक्त है न तन्मया, मैंने योग युक्त होकर वो भगवत गीता कही थी." तो भगवान ने यहाँ पे अलग अलग जगह पे योग पर जोर दिया. योग is the getting in the union with yourself and then do the function. So it is, I will not, I would have loved to go deep, but then unfortunately I will not, because when I'm not able to implement myself, there's no logic that I keep on talking like a parrot, So whatever touched me in amongst the earlier speakers, I have conveyed. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Meenakshi ji.
Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om, please go ahead.
Yeah. So the verse 26, it talks about the nature of the mind. And the stress point over here is that mind is fickle by nature and it will roam around as it is dynamic vehicle in us. How we use the dynamism is how we use the dynamism is up to us. So like in Art of Man Making, Gurudev has said that the flow of thoughts is mind, as he always defines it. Every time the mind goes, persuade it to come back and focus on self again. Now, one thing which struck me was that even when we are doing something or when the mind is blank, our mind does go to different places. Even if that awareness comes within us that, yes, my mind is going to different places or it is not at the focal point, that awareness is prime. So as is something which, if we recognize that this has happened, and then we bring it back, because if that awareness itself is not there, and we just flow with the mind, then there's no point of, the concentration will never happen. That's what Gurudev has mentioned as well, that we are not aware of the mind's flight from its point of concentration. And the way it will come back is by Abhyasa Yoga. So you keep on bringing it back again and again. So every time it goes, you try and bring it back. He has also mentioned in many of his literature that if the mind is wandering like a monkey, like in our day-to-day activities, when we are working or when we are busy, the mind doesn't trouble us that much, because the mind is active. It's active and it will probably listen to what we are doing. If it is, I think most of us, we are able to regulate the mind when we are busy, we are dynamically working. But when we are trying to be quiet and wanting to meditate, it jumps around. And what Gurudev has said is, then you be a witness of the mind. So you detach yourself from the mind and let it run to all the objects. You don't entertain the mind. So when the mind is not entertained, then the mind will automatically quieten. So this is what is there in verse 26. Then one more thought was, the earlier speakers have said that this is the only way of quietening the mind. I may be wrong, and maybe Sanjay ji or everyone else can correct me later on, but I feel that this is a bit hard way of doing things. It's quite hard and difficult. And maybe the easier way is falling in love. So in Bhakti Yoga, so if you're in love with someone, like if you're in love with your child, your attention is automatically drawn towards that child. So converting meditation that whole process of converting into love probably is a easier way than this process, which can be extremely difficult and tiring. Also, Balaji spoke about the value system. Okay, so it's very simple. These are very simple things. If we bring the value system in place, then the mind is controlled. It's just when the value system is not there, like the river is flowing, the banks are the intellect. The value systems are, these are very simple things, and we have been grown up. We have grown up hearing these things and learning these things. It's just that we don't pay attention to it. Similarly, when we are saying that focus our mind on the self, so what is the self? Actually, what is the self? Self is not something outside. This is the awareness within us, the deepest awareness that I'm talking now. This awareness within me, which at this point doesn't seem dynamic to me at all. It just seems like it's just there. We don't give attention to it. But that attention, when it is being directed that in this awareness I'm talking, in this awareness I'm doing things, is it's a very base of everything, which probably doesn't come in our mind. It doesn't just give, we just don't consider it as a pivot where our attention should go. That's my take on verse 26. Verse 27, I wouldn't want to comment. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Sanjay ji, please.
Hari Om. Since Atma Sanyamana Yoga or Dhyana Yoga is being discussed, it goes without saying that unless every single shloka is consciously connected to Yoga Shastra, the understanding may not be appropriate. Reading Jnana Yoga 2nd chapter without Sankhya Tattva Jnana, trying to understand the 6th Atma Sanyamana Yoga or the Dhyana Yoga without understanding of Yoga Shastra is like a surgeon entering into operation theater without the instruments. That is why a very fundamental question arises in the mind in the first line of the 26th shloka. Yataha nischarati manaha chanchalam asthiram. Forget about what are the obstacles or what are the causes of the movement of the mind. The word chanchalam and asthiram, why these two words are used? Is it not which is asthir is chanchal or what is chanchal is asthir? Why chanchal and asthir? Are they synonyms or they are not? The mind is fickle. That means it is unsteady. Why use two words? Again, dvirukti is a dosh in scripture. And Bhagavad Gita, being a divine scripture, is without dosha. So if I find some dosha in it, there must be some problem with my thinking. So the fundamental question of the first line is, why chanchalam and asthiram, both words are used? Then comes the question that whenever it goes away because of whatever may be the cause, that is fine. That is palupada. That is upapada. The crux is chanchalam asthiram. How can mind be chanchala and asthira? When is it chanchala and when is it asthira and when it is sthira? For the understanding of this, then one has to delve deep into the Patanjali Yoga Shastra. We are talking about the mind. In fact, the Atma Sanyaman Yoga is nothing else but only mind. The all Adhyaya is speaking only about mind, mind and mind, because man eva manushyanam karanam bandham mokshayoho. There is nothing to be repaired in this world except the mind. Mule kutharaha. No point in cutting the branches of the tree. Just cut asunder the root, the tree will fall. Work on the mind, everything is sorted out. Now, to work on a particular thing when it is in problem or otherwise, we must know the nature of the problem, the nature of a thing. You want to repair a radio, you must know what radio is comprised of. Like in medicine, we learn to repair the body. Before repairing the body, the surgery or the medicine, one has to learn anatomy and physiology, working and functioning of the physical body. Similarly, there must be a study of nature of the mind. What is mind? What it is comprised of? What are its functions? From where it comes into existence? Is it ever living or it is destroyable? How does it really function? How such a untangible, unknowable thing is causing havoc with me? Is it supposed to really cause havoc always? All the realized saints and souls, do they have mind or they don't have mind? If they don't have mind, how they work in the common place? These questions should and expected to come in the mind, and then we realize that first thing that needs to be known is mind, what stuff it is made up of. Mind is nothing else but antakarana, which is karyanumeyi. A mind will never be understood or ascertained unless it functions. A non-functional mind is not existing. In fact, mind comes into existence only with it functioning. When it is not functioning, it is not in existence. Then when it comes into functioning means what? It comes in action. Mind coming into action is called vritti. We will not come to know that there is water in the lake when it is stands still, pristine and pure. Moment the waves start in the water, water gets ascertained by the person who is standing on the water, because now there is a shaking movement. This modification of mind is called a vritti, which expresses itself in the form of thought, which could be desire, which leads to the action with the help of the sense organs while playing with the sensuous objects. This is called vritti pravaha. But let us forget about the pravaha. The question is, what are the vrittis? Vrittaya panchatayyaha klishta aklishta, Patanjali Maharaj. There are 5 types of modifications of the mind. Pramana viparyaya, then smruti, nidra, and vikalpa. Pramana, what is the mind doing normally? Oh, 2 plus 2 is 4. Balaji Maharaj is standing in front of me. The tree is in front of me. Pratyaksha jnanam. The clouds are making noise. It must be raining somewhere. Anumana. And Gurudev was saying that Atma Jnana is the ultimate Agama or Shabda Jnana, because I have not seen Atman. Gurudev has seen. So I believe in what Gurudev says. Sashraddha Shraddhaya Yukta. That is called Shabda Jnana or Agama Jnana. These are the only 3 ways of getting Jnanam, called secular knowledge. Pramana, that is Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Agama. We are talking from yoga standpoint, so only 3 pramana. In Advaitas, there are 6 types of pramana, but 3 pramana we are talking, because yoga is the base. So the mind is working through these 3 pramanas to get the knowledge. Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Agama. It can also have viparyaya. Viparyaya is false knowledge. False knowledge, that is called klesha. False knowledge is called klesha. Had we had the correct knowledge, there shouldn't have been any klesha. So what are these klesha? Pancha klesha, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. These are 5 kleshas. These are called viparyaya. Vikalpa is the verbal delusion. A rabbit with a horn. There is no rabbit with a horn, but I can say so. Saying so doesn't mean anything exists. So this is also a knowledge. Rabbit with a horn, I can imagine, but it doesn't exist. Vikalpa. Then smruti, the experience of what has been experienced that is left behind in the form of impression is called smruti. I am no more a child, but in the childhood, I used to like mango, the raw mango, a lot. Now, neither the raw mango is existing of the childhood, nor the childhood is existing, but the memory is still existing. The impression of that experience, smruti. That means there are 4 vrittis we are constantly on with. Either we are trying to do what is called as pramana, Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Agama, which is our day-to-day life, or we are doing viparyaya, angry, happy, not wanting to die, wanting to leave, not understanding Brahman. This is what one type of vritti is. Or we are reminiscing in the memories of past. Ah, what those days were. This is 3rd spot where the mind will be going. So it will go to vikalpa, verbal delusion, or smruti, memory, or pramana, or false knowledge. These are the only 4 points where the mind will jump and sit. When it is awake, when we are awake in a jagrat avastha, these are the 4 possible points for the mind to ponder. Pramana, viparyaya, vikalpa, smruti. What about nidra? Nidra is possible only when jagrut avastha is not there. That means it is interesting and surprising, but as Patanjali Maharaj tells us, sleep is a modification of a mind. Sleep is also a vritti. Sleep is a modification of the mind, in which what happens? These 4 are absent. When pramana, viparyaya, vikalpa, and smruti is not there, then the 5th stage is called nidra. Now that these 5 modifications of mind are known, the first line will be easy to understand. Manaha chanchalam, 4 outlets. Chanchalam means 4 outlets. Pramana, Viparyaya, Vikalpa, Smriti. This is chanchalam. Asthiram, Nidra. Why? Mind is not there. Mind is dissolved. Laya. Laya means sthirata is gone. Asthira. That is why chanchalam, asthiram, both are to be avoided. Whatever causes these 5 modifications. And what causes this modification? Either an object, sensuous object, or the memory. Any cause that causes disturbance in the pristine, pure, calm waters of mind, resulting into the waves of vritti or the modification in 4 different directions when one is awake, is called chanchalam. When it is not in these 4 states, it goes into the 5th stage, which is also a modification, is called nidra, is called asthiram. Then the advice of Bhagavad Gita is tataha tataha. At those times when there is a cause for such disturbances, niyamya, restrain the mind from getting modified into these pancha vrittis. When that is done, then comes the question, if it is not supposed to go to these 4, if it is not supposed to go to that 5th, then where does it supposed to go? Put it on Atmani eva. Atmani Saptami, in the Atman. So take away your mind, which itself is an exercise. Taking away mind from these 5 vrittis is vairagya. Now that vairagya itself is not so easy. Yata mana vyatireka, ekendriya, vashikara, and paravairagya. 5 stages to achieve that vairagyam. Detachment. So gradual detachment from what? To know from what viveka is required. Walking on the path is vairagya. Lightening the path with the help of the lamp is called viveka. Otherwise, walking will be in the wrong direction. Viveka yukta vairagya, not karana vairagya. Father passed away, there is no point left in this world, sir. My father left, sir, only for 7 days. Karana vairagya, no. Viveka purna vairagya. What is viveka purna vairagya? Every time the discriminative faculty of the intellect has to be used. Why am I attending the satsang on Friday? Oh, it's a good thing to do when you slightly get older. Stupid excuses to attend satsanga. No, it is also a forum to exploit the opportunity to show the knowledge that you have received by reading, and you have one up than the others. Another stupid reason to attend satsanga. No, it is an exercise, spiritual, meant for me, given to me by ever compassionate saints like Gurudeva, for my own upliftment, because I am riddled with the faults and the blemishes. That is called Viveka Purna Vairagyam. But the question is, if I'm supposed to keep away all these vrittis and focus on Atman, but sir, I don't know what Atman is. Where is it residing? No. All the books are telling Atma is right inside you. But sir, every day I take bath, I don't see it. It is all right at an intellectual level or between two amongst us to say that everything is Brahman, everything is Atma. Where is the experience? It is not there. Now, if something which is not heard of, not smelt of, not tested of, not seen of, not experienced of, how can I focus on that? Rational question. Atmani eva, all right, sir. But I cannot forget Atmani eva. I am not able to concentrate on my regular work. Even my food that I am liking and eating, there also my mind gets distracted. Look at that remote when I pick up to choose a channel on the TV. It is going from this channel, that channel. Oh, there must be something. There must be. That is chanchalata. And you're talking of Atmani eva. What do? Atmani eva is an instruction in the dhyani who has reached the final frontier. Then what about starters like us? What do? Not Atmani eva, anything else but one, ekagrata, because Atmani eva is going from ekagrata to niruddhata. We want to go from bahuvidhata to ekagrata. So what do? Take anything in front. What should I take, sir? Don't take that what will distract you. Otherwise, why don't we meditate on a woman? It will distract you. Why? There is an experience you have of that thing. So it will keep on distracting you. Take something which you have not experienced. Which one? Take the Shaligram. Take Vishnu Bhagavan. Have you seen Vishnu Bhagavan? No. Have you seen Vithala? Oh, he is black and oh, that is an image. That much only I know. So there is nothing that will distract you if you take a Vigraha of that type. And the only disturbance that can come after deep concentration is you will see Vithala, which is a welcome change. So keep in front of you something or the others as alambana. Keep taking the visible alambana first, which is perceptible by senses like a murti. Then go towards subtle. Concentrate on tanmatras. You and me cannot. Why? Where is tanmatra? Where are they? How can I? I mean, I don't know anything. How can I concentrate on it? But once you start concentrating on what is perceptible by senses, you start transcending the senses and the next door opens. After tanmatra, again the next door opens. You will start concentrating by buddhi on your buddhi. Concentrating on ahankara, asmita, sa-asmita, sampradnyat samadhi. After those 4 stages of savitarka, savichara, sananda, sasmita is done, you will be knocking at the doors where you shall be able to now focus on Atmani eva. There, even at that stage, there will be some samskaras that will pull you out. They are called vyuthana samskara. Restraining them and focusing on Atmani eva. That is Vasham Nayet. Vasham Nayet. Take the mind under the control. Vasha. Currently, it is other way around. The horse is sitting on the man. The mind called horse is sitting on the man and the man is being dragged everywhere. Sit on the horse. Vashikaranat. By controlling, then what happens? Nayet. Nayet means Nava, Nayati. Like a boat going slowly towards the coast. Nayet. Naya mori nike nike chalana lagi. Kabir Maharaj says, now my boat is slowly going towards the shore. Andhi megha kachu nahi bhave. Chade sant bada bhagi. In my boat, the saints are sitting. So I am not scared of Andhi megha, the clouds and the storm. Because Vairagya is complete. No desires, no vrittis. Why? Scents are sitting in my board, the scently thoughts. The Atma Vidya is sitting in my head. So, Vasham Naye. Gurudeva has given the very process of withdrawal is to be complemented by the conscious effort on the part of the meditator in applying the same mind at once in the contemplation of the self. Sometimes Gurudeva writes very casually a statement because it is casual for him after the experience that he had. So he said that leaving aside everything, taking the mind under control and applying at once the same mind, this is the most difficult part of the dhyanam. Now, in the whole context of this thing, me as a sadhaka attending the Friday satsang as per Gurudeva's direction, what is the takeaway for me? Takeaway is very simple. Wherever you are in the state of mind as far as vrittis are concerned, start from that point. You cannot be upstart in spirituality. So find out where you are. Oh, my mind is so fickle, forget about this ekagrata and all. It just keeps wavering in here. How many objects it attempts? Sir, 200 objects it attempts. Make it 100. Then make it 50. Then make it 20. How do I do that? By cutting off the undue likings. First, stop increasing the likings. Meaning what? Stop going on those social medias because they are again trapping you. Avoid the traps, new traps first. New gadgets, new technologies, new techniques, new science, new this, new model, new phone, new car, all traps. Cut off. Then start dealing with whatever has been eaten. First, start eating the bad things. Then whatever has already been eaten, start dealing with it. Samskaras. Shanai. Slowly, slowly. And such a person, then what happens to him? The phalotpatti of the one who does this Atmani eva vasham nayate. Phalam is prashanta manasam. Prashanta manasam hi enam yoginam sukham uttamam. Prashanta manasa. What is prashanta manasa? Vrittirahitya. Nirodhar vritti. Prashanta. Prakarshena shanta. That means no flutters or waves on the surface of the pristine, pure, clear water. Antakarna has stopped its activity. The modifications are stopped. So the mirror had stopped reflecting the sunlight and lightening the objects. At that moment, because mirror has become dysfunctional, sun itself starts lightening everything. So far, the sun's huge encompassing light was restricted by the mirror called mind in reflecting a small reflection on the wall. That was called knowledge. Now the mirror is gone. The sun is directly shining. There is no limit to the knowledge because it is knowledge par excellence, knowledge per se. Because knowledge is the nature of Brahman. At the same time, no vagaries, no flutters, no chanchalata, no asthirata. All the 5 vrittis are gone. No pramanam. That is why there is no study anymore of the scriptures also. Because scripture is agama. Tukaram Maharaj says, Vedanta to artha amma se chithawa. He says, we are the only people who know Veda. Others are only carrying it as a burden on the head. Why did he say so? Because after the Vedas are used to get the Atmadhyan, what is it? It is just a book. After the stair has been used, the staircase has been used to go on the upper floor. What do you do with the staircase? Throw it away. Prashanta manasahi ena yoginam sukham uttamam. Uttamam Sukham. That means less than Uttamam Sukham are already there. As a king, you are controlling thousands of subjects and you get a feel that, oh, what I am. It's a Sukham. Who can deny that? Maithunam is Sukham. Who can deny that? In the office, when I sit on the boss's chair and say that you people come here, Sukham also, but not Uttamam. Why? That boss has got another boss. That enjoyment got another enjoyment. A normal Toyota and a Ferrari, that is called as Satishaya Sukham. There is one up always there. Better than this is always there. Only one which is Niratishaya. There is no better than that. Sukham Uttamam. So he gets Sukham Uttamam. How much Uttamam? Even the Anandamaya Kosha, Anandam is considered secondary. See, Ananda Vyapti is before Shokanash. If you see the 7 avasthas of Abhasa, starting from Avarana Vikshepa, Aparoksha Jnana, Aparoksha Jnana, Ananda Vyapti and Shokanash. So Anandamaya Kosha, Anandam is also third rate compared to the Sukham Uttamam. Upayati Shanta Rajasam. Shanta Rajasam. Rajasam is what? Those 4 vrittis that we spoke about. Pramana Viparyaya, Vikalpa, Smriti. These are all 4 because of Rajoguna. That Rajoguna is now Upayati, comes Shanta Rajasam. Because Rajas has become quiet. At the same time, what about the 5th vritti, Asthiram, that we spoke about, Nidra? That is called Kalmasham. Akalmasham. The 5th vritti is also conquered. So Akalmasham, Shanta Rajasam. That means Tamasa is gone. Rajasa is gone. But sir, if Tamasa is gone, Rajasa is gone, do you mean to say it is all Sattva now? It is all Sattva, but Sattva itself will be gone. Then what happens? Tamasa is gone, Rajasa is gone, that Sattva which was lightning, even that is gone. You have already gone beyond the Trigunas. Nistraigunyo Bhava. Once that happens, then you are Brahma Bhuta. Brahmavit, the one who knows. Knows means, that is where Swamiji has given the statement. The ego rediscovers itself to be nothing other than the self. I am standing in front of Krishna, Bhagavan. I have a feeling that I am and he is Krishna. I am Krishna Bhakta, but I have gone so close. Now the Bhakta's trace is no more there. What is there? Only Sri Krishna. What happened to that Bhakta? What happened to the Meera? Krishna Mayata. When she becomes Krishna Maya, she ceases to exist by the name of Meera. So the ego in its finest, that is called Sukshma Antakarana Vritti, finest Vritti, last bastion is like, it's like, as we say, the example of a bee and the fire that was taken. Let us say the bee is going closer to the fire. So she knows I'm going closer to the fire, and a point of time comes when she's burnt. When she's burnt means what? The bee is no more there. Then what is existing? Only fire. Even the remnants of the bee are also not there. In the same manner, the mind, which is comprising of 3 gunas, all the 3 gunas are lost at a time when there is awareness of self. So awareness of self is complete lack of awareness of mind. And that is how the mental zone is gone, the intellectual zone is gone, In fact, everything is gone and only Brahma Bhuta, he is the only one, all pervasive, is only remaining. The process of unfolding is over. The consciousness is no more going to unfold because it has unfolded itself to its maximum, and that is the ultimate Gantavya. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Any questions regarding this discussion? Anyone actually, just if you have any questions. Okay, then we move to Sukumarji, please, proceed with the closing prayers.
सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामय, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। असतो मा सद्गमय, तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय, मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम। Let us take our pledge. We stand as one family, bound to each other with the love and respect. We serve as an army, courageous and disciplined, ever ready to fight against all no tendencies and false values within and without us. We live honestly the noble life of sacrifice and service, producing more than what we consume and giving more than what we take. We seize the Lord's grace, keep us on the path of virtue, courage, and wisdom. May thy grace and blessings flow through us to the world around us. We believe that the service of our country is the service of the Lord of Lords, and devotion to the people is the devotion to the Supreme Son. We know our responsibilities, give us the ability and courage to fulfill them. Om Tat Sat. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari
Hari
Om.
Om. Hari Om.
Just a personal invitation for Sadhana Sandhya tomorrow. So all are welcome.
Tomorrow is Ramayanam starting. So it's an auspicious day also.
Very good. Excellent. So hope to see you all. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.